Welcome back to Course Correction Radio, my friends. My name is Trey Harris. Thank you for joining me. Tonight we have a very special broadcast for you, Vanity of Vanities. It was supposed to air last week, but things happen. We get sick sometimes, and it's important that we rest and recover. So Sarah is going to be heading this up, and as you guys can see on YouTube, she is on the screen. So I'm going to hand it over to her, but first, let me do this.
Yes, housekeeping.
Yes. I want to make sure that we thank those who have been kind enough to partner with us. And the first one up is nowuctv.org. Guys, make sure you head over to nowuctv.org. If you use the promo code CCR, that's all caps CCR, you can get your first 30 days free on us. And so if you head over there on the screen, if it'll load, they got tons of documentaries. We've got the Book of Enoch video commentary series. We've got goodness gracious, OBS is just giving me a fit today. All right, so we've got the Book of Enoch video commentary series. We've got Dark Covenant, Secret of Secrets, Dark Covenant, Lies of the Immortal. So make sure you use that promo code CCR. You can get your first 30 days free on us. So make sure you check that out. That's nystv.org. Also want to give a shout out to shakeandwakeradio.com. Annie, thank you so much. We love you so much over here, and thank you for carrying our show. And make sure you guys subscribe and check out the website for truthradioshow.com with Dan Badandi. I was just on his show over the weekend, and we talked about spiritual warfare, the dark realm, and the millennial reign deception, so you're not going to want to miss that. That was a great episode. Without further ado, here is Sarah, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me again. We had a crash the first time, so I'm going to have to repeat everything I just said, even though y'all haven't heard it. Thanks to everybody who watched my episode on the threshing floor. I loved talking with you guys in the chat and everybody who watched it and commented. I love the feedback. And it was really, really fun. And so, as I said last time, when God gives me something, I try to, present it to y'all the best way possible. And the way this one came to me was really fun, actually. So, I am an avid amateur gardener. And I was outside one day. And to give you a mental image of kind of what I was dealing with is I had a rectangle-shaped raised garden bed that I'm growing my beans in this year. It's some good snap beans, and I've gotten a lot off of them, and I love them. So this year I decided, instead of just doing pole beans, that climb trellises, I decided on each side of the raised garden bed I would do the trellis so that they grew up kind of into like a teepee, and then in the middle underneath them I would put the bush style green beans. So instead of climbing up, they're just one bush and everything grows there. So that way they would be protected from the sun by the pole beans, and I would get twice as many beans in one bed. So I was out there picking beans, and I kind of moved back the foliage of the pole beans to look at the bush beans, and they were so heavy with beans, and I was picking them all off, but the plants themselves look kind of pathetic. The leaves, they weren't, sickly looking or nothing. It was just how the plant was supposed to look. Very spindly, not a very attractive looking plant, but so many beans and so many good beans. And then I went, searching through the pole beans. They were, about 8 foot of trellis up and down each side. And I was looking for beans, and I couldn't find any. There was flowers everywhere, beautiful white flowers. The leaves were beautiful. Everything about this plant, with all 30 of them, they were just so nice to look at. But there were no beans. And I look back, at my pathetic looking little bush beans that I had just gotten, a couple of handfuls off of just 10 plants. And I talk to my plants, science says that it's good for them. So I talk to them, and gardening is my therapy, so and I looked at the pole bean plants and I said, "Come on, guys, I don't care how beautiful you are. I just want beans." And all of a sudden it was like I could hear God's voice in my ear saying, "I don't care how beautiful you are. I just want fruit." And I said, "Okay, God, that's, okay, that's what I'm supposed to present. That's the message I'm supposed to give to your people." And he led me to the book of Ecclesiastes, which, the very first words after, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, the very first thing we see is, "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher. "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." And I said, "Okay, so, what do you want me to do with this? How do you want me to present it?" And I was praying on it and I was studying. And the first thing that, I looked at was, why is it repeated, vanity of vanities? And, looking it up, the doubling means the epitome of, just like when they call God the King of Kings. He is the king over all the kings. He is Lord of lords. He is the Lord over all the little L lords in all the castles and all the places in all the world. He's the epitome of the kings and the epitome of the lords. And that's what Vanity of Vanities is. It's the epitome of vanity. It is the vainest of all. And Ecclesiastes is saying all is vanity. And then when we go to verse 3, it says, "What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun?" So when you look at Ecclesiastes at face value, it can get kind of depressing if you only take it for exactly what you see. That he's saying all is vanity. One generation passes away, another generation comes. The sun rises, the sun goes down. The wind goes towards the south and turns around to the north. All the rivers run into the sea. Basically, and down in verse 8, it says, "All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing." He's saying, the clock keeps turning, basically. Things keep happening. The sun keeps going up and down. What is the point? And when you say it, it sounds depressing. What is the point? A lot of people I know, including myself, years back have said that. What is the point of life? And when you read the book at face value, it looks like, that's all that's happening here. But the more you dig, it's not talking about, what is the point of living. It's what is the point of living in the vanity. And tonight what I want to do is kind of rip away at the seams of that vanity in our lives and reveal the simple beauty of the way God wants us to live and our purpose, because life is purposeful and it is full of hope and joy, and we have to rip away the vanity to find it. So I want to start with, what profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? So that's talking about, work. He was, specifically most likely talking about work in the fields. I till, I plant seed, I water, I harvest, I feed the animals, I eat the animals. Food turns into waste, which turns into earth, which grows more food. What is the point of what I'm doing? I'm, going around in circles doing the same old every day, in and out. And so, I thought about my husband. I thought about Trey and his job. He is an exterminator for a living. He's which I think your title is technically what? Pest control manager? Pest management professional. And he's very good at his job. But if he looked at his job and said, every day my purpose is to kill bugs and come home, it would get very depressing. Would it not, my love? I mean, that's, unless you're, an 8-year-old out, in the park, smushing all the fire ants because you think it's fun, killing bugs every day just doesn't sound exciting. But when you look at the purpose of his job, well, and that's because you've also been able to look at the purpose of what you're doing, because we talk about it all the time. Like, you know, uh, he doesn't look at it as, I'm doing a job, I'm spraying some chemicals, I'm leaving. He looks at it as, I went into a family's house where they couldn't get any peace because of, the roaches or the spiders everywhere. They were crawling around. They were full of anxiety. They couldn't, have sanitary food conditions in the kitchen to cook. They couldn't lay in their beds without, spiders crawling around. And he is able to go in and deliver some anxiety and stress relief. And that's what he looks at his job as. It's a way to help people in a very specific way, mind you, like all jobs on earth. But he's able to pull back that vanity of making a paycheck because the world tells me I need to make X amount of dollars to be happy, and this is the best way I've found, and rip that layer away. But the world also tells me that I need to have a certain car, so I need to make more money to buy that car, and I need to make more money to buy these clothes and go on these vacations, because the world tells me that means that I'll be happy, that's my purpose, to make X amount of dollars at my job. But that's not his job. He looks at his job as, I was able to go in and help a family today. And because he was able to help a family, you spread a little bit of Jesus' love wherever you go. And that's the way he shares his love with God's people, is that's what he is called to do. And yes, he gets a paycheck, and we are very appreciative of that paycheck. It pays for our beautiful home and our car and the food we put in our children's bellies, and my chicken buying addiction, it fuels that. And we're thankful for that. But it does so much more. There's so many of his customers that just sit and talk with him. And I mean, you can tell them about that. Like, your relationship with your customers is out of this world. Like when he sits there talking for a couple hours and he really needs to go and do stops. But you know what? Sometimes that's the only face that some people see is, oh, it's my pest control guy, or they might be lonely shut-ins or widows or widowers or oh. Yeah, and I mean, yeah. Make the dollar and go home. Get in, get out as fast as possible to get to the next one.
I just realized I've been muted this whole time. Nobody can hear me. So, but
Gosh.
it's
I've been talking to a ghost.
it's all about the bottom line. It's all about the bottom dollar in this world. But what I was just telling her, you guys probably didn't hear it, but we had a customer on a different route than mine. He was 80 years old. He paid for his service every month, and he didn't want anything sprayed. He just wanted the guy to come and have coffee with him every morning, once a month. And I mean, that's what it's about. It's about the relationships.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. That's what I do. What I do. Number one, I care about the customers. I don't care about anything else. My customers are they come first.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about quick turnover in these days. Even in, like, what I do for a living, I'm a part-time birth doula, and I see it all the time in hospitals. Mom is in labor. Oh, it's not going quick enough. We need to turn this bed over so we can get somebody else in it so we can get more dollars. So let's pump her full of, artificial chemicals to get this baby out. Oh, wait. Uh-oh, she's in distress. Rather than have her work through it, dial back our medicines and, let her body figure it out, we need to give her a C-section right now. Sometimes, granted, it is needed. I've seen a lot of times where it's not. And it breaks my heart because all they're doing is trying to turn the beds over and fit as many people in a day to fill quota as they can, as possible. I have not seen a hospital. I've seen doctors, but not a hospital yet in my practice where their policies were set up to aid the mother. But let me not get on my soapbox about that. You have to rip away the vanity and find the purpose in your work. Sometimes it's hard. Like, some jobs seem so menial to some people, and they're not, but they seem that way in the moment. Like if you work at a bowling alley and all you do all day is spray cleaner in shoes and take people's money. But rip away the vanity and see, look at that family over there. They haven't gotten to spend any quality time with each other all week because of school and work and other things and life getting in the way. And look at those kids smiling. You were there to help supply that. Or, like I was telling the story, the first time we did this take, and it crashed. I used to be an assistant bookkeeper. And, if I looked at my job as just handling money all day, turning over cashier's tills and making deposits, sending deposits to the bank, I would have been quite miserable. It would have been so mundane and boring. Excuse me. That I would not have found any love for the job life at all. I would have hated being there and resented it. But I loved my job. My thing is that, I've always been a people pleaser. We all have that hook that, that's our thing that, we fight our flesh on all the time. It just hooks us back in, like anger or your patience or you're stubborn or you're, whatever it is. I'm a people pleaser. I have a sprinkling of the other things, but I'm a people pleaser. So when I looked at my job, I was able to rip away that vanity veil, which is, I'm going to pin that because I like that. I was able to rip away that vanity veil and see the purpose behind what I was doing. I'm not just making deposits. I'm making sure these books are balanced and that money is in the bank so every cashier on my row gets their paycheck. And they're able to provide for their families and themselves. Or, I am making sure this office is clean. So in my downtime, I loved to clean. I could not stand it dirty at all or dusty or anything. So when my managers walk into the office because they need something, I'm not adding any more stress to their day because my space is dirty. And I saw that as my way of giving to them. That was my purpose in being there that day. So you have to find the profit in your labor. It is not your paycheck. It is not. That is a wonderful bonus because thank God for supplying all our needs, but it is not the profit of your labor. You have to rip away that vanity veil and find it in order to feel love for not only life, but the people around you because you're serving them in some way. Doesn't matter what your job is. Like, name the most random job you can think of right now. Anything. Just name it.
Spoon maker.
Spoon maker. You like to try to trip me up, don't you? But no.
You said random. That was the first thing I thought of.
Okay, so you make spoons for a living, okay? Oh, yeah, like I knew somebody, who's the one we know, you don't have to say their name, but that makes the plastic things that fruit go in, the plastic containers.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like that job, like a factory person, you just make some random item. But let's start with the spoons. Could the job get done without spoons, Yeah. would people be happy when they want to eat soup? Nope.
You would.
I eat soup with a fork, and he judges me for it. So, all of you feel free to comment on how that's not fair.
Everything has a purpose.
A time for everything under the sun. A time.
Except for forks and soup.
Okay, so you can't respond to me right now, but when I'm watching this later,
leave a comment below if you think forks belong with soup. No judgment if you do. I just like giving her a hard time about it. I find it hilarious.
I will be in the chat when this airs. So right now, as I'm talking about it, let me know right now if you think it's weird that I eat soup with a fork. First, before you say anything, let me explain my reasoning. I take the fork and I eat all of the good stuff out of the soup, like the chicken or the noodles or the vegetables, and I like to stab them with my fork or, just twirl them up if they're noodles, and I eat them till there's nothing but broth. And then I pick the bowl up and I drink all of the broth. And that's how I eat soup. If I was trying to pick up all the innards with a spoon, I don't think it will work. I got country, sorry. If I try to pick up the inside of my soup with a spoon.
I'm sorry. This is not professional at all. Forgive us.
If I try to pick the innards up with a spoon, I did it again. I don't mean to say innards. The good stuff of my soup with a spoon, it would fall off. The sustenance. It would fall off. So I use a fork. The innards. When I say innards, everything else gets twangy after. Okay, continue. So,
we were talking about spoon makers, and you went on a tangent.
Spoon makers.
Granted, it was my fault, but you went on a tangent.
You are the reason that people can eat soup without burning themselves unless they eat it with a fork like me. But I'm sure if you make spoons, you probably make forks. You have a purpose, and it is enriching people's lives that they can eat a broad array of foods, without burning themselves on them. Or ice cream. Ice cream is super cold. I'm not holding that with my hands. And someone's going to say ice cream cone in the chat. But there are some people who don't eat ice cream cones. So
like Lydia.
There. Like Lydia, our daughter. Yes. So let's go down to verse 14. Chapter 1, verse 14. I feel like I'm calling bingo when I do it like that. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and indeed all is vanity and grasping for the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be numbered. I communed with my heart, saying, Look, I have attained greatness, and I have gained more wisdom than all who were before me in Jerusalem. My heart has understood great wisdom and knowledge, and I set my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is grasping for the wind. So again, it seems depressing until you realize that he's absolutely right. If I was having a conversation with a guy one time, and he was telling me about this it was like a spiritual teacher in India who became so enlightened spiritually that he stopped talking. He found himself above the English language that he did not talk the rest of his life for the next 20
Spoke
some
English
odd years.
in India? Impressive.
What did I say?
You said an Indian teacher was above the English language.
He was above language.
Sorry, I literally didn't know what you meant. That was not semantics. That confused me. I had to clarify.
He was above language.
Sorry, we're so tired. It's been a long weekend.
Oh, you made me cry.
Oh, goodness.
He was
Anyway, start the story over because we don't confuse people.
He was a spiritual teacher, and he, studied and gained all this knowledge and meditated until he gained enlightenment so much that he stopped talking. He didn't speak anymore. He found himself above language, not the English language, all language. He didn't speak for the rest of his life.
In fairness, including English.
Including English, But what was the point? He gained all that enlightenment, but he couldn't share it. He didn't bear fruit. Didn't matter how beautiful he looked to the world, as far as, oh my gosh, that's so cool, like, I wish I could get on that level. Even though, we know it was, not, it wasn't following Jesus, but, there are some people who don't know Jesus that would look at that and be attracted to it because they're like, oh, he's stress-free, he's worry-free. I want to be like that.
Well, we know how dangerous internalization is, too.
Yeah, exactly. But he couldn't share it with anybody. He couldn't share the wisdom that he had gained to get that stress and worry-free because he didn't speak. He kept all that wisdom and knowledge to himself, which, again, we know it's not the right path, but this is just an example to show you what is the point of gaining all that wisdom if you don't bear fruit with it, So how much more for us that know Jesus and know how beautiful he is and know the difference in heaven and hell. If you collect all that wisdom and knowledge and you keep it to yourself, it is grasping for the wind. It is vanity. There's nothing good about it. Your soul is saved. Hallelujah. Praise God. But what are you going to do with it? The work isn't over when you say the words and you're saved. The work just started. And if you read this Bible and you understand its mysteries, what's the verse? Have not love?
1 Corinthians 13.
13:1. It's in my notes for later.
Look at you, getting ahead of yourself.
Well, where God takes me, I go.
Absolutely. Well, that's the beautiful thing about the will of God is it exists outside of our concept of time and our linear thought.
If you want to pull it up, 1 Corinthians 13:1.
Give me just a second.
I can do that.
All right.
And this is another one. People know this verse in 1 Corinthians, because of, love suffers and is kind, love does not envy, does not boast. But
it's
this part,
it's used in weddings a lot, but in reality, this type of love, this is that charity, this is agape love. It's so much like to limit it to romantic love is really, it does the Bible a disservice.
Yeah. So, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy, excuse me, I had to cough, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. And what 1 Corinthians is saying, just like what Ecclesiastes is saying, is vanity of vanities. All is vanity. It's worth absolutely nothing if you didn't do something with it that changed a life forever and showed them Jesus. Nothing. And that's really the heart of that's really the heart of, God himself. We're supposed to strive to be like him. We're never going to reach perfection until we see him. It doesn't mean we're not supposed to try. We're supposed to try every day. Die to flesh daily. That is the heart of God right there, that you love him and that he loves you with such a love that he gave his only son. Why wouldn't you want to tell people about that? Why would you want to collect that knowledge for yourself? Why would you want to sit in a room and hide yourself away from the world? Or why would you want to be so stuck in routine that you say, my job, that is my purpose, and making the money and spending the money, that is my purpose. I'm a consumer, that's what I do. And to step outside of that, is to break down the fourth wall. Like we're all a TV show. We're the characters in a TV show, and the fourth wall is over there. My husband loves when they break the fourth wall. No matter what we're watching, he loves it. He will rewind and watch it again and again and again.
Especially if it's done masterfully.
And that's kind of what we're like, in society. When we choose to just keep playing the game and running the rat race, we are staying inside those three walls. But we are called to break the fourth wall, guys. We're called to.
Well, it's just like so, and I know because of how much of an early bird you are and how early you typically go to bed.
Yeah.
You don't get to watch the midnight ride a whole lot.
No, I have to listen to it later.
But they did an episode on simulation theory, which by the way you can find on nystv.org.
Aha,
shameless plug. But they talked about the dangers of simulation theory because John had people email him look, my kids are getting into this stuff and they feel like life is hopeless now and things like that. But all simulation theory is it's a deception designed to say, well, if there's a simulation, then what is there? Somebody who created somebody who created it, right?
Right.
It's a deception to hide God within his own creation. And so people see, this had to be made by somebody, but it's because we're just in one elaborate computer, when in fact what we are is we're in an enclosed system that was invented by a creator.
To keep
and
us
the
so
only way
busy.
to show people what it is to show them who God is. It's literally like when Morpheus pulled Neo out of the Matrix with the red pill.
I gotta finish the Matrix.
Which is why we have that shirt, which hopefully one day will be available on our website, and it says, "You want to take the red pill? Read the red letters."
Yeah, I
because
made
it's
that
the
especially
only
for
way.
him because he loves saying that in front of it. Literally, I'd put a little.
I can't help it. It's just so catchy.
I put a little red oval on it, and it says, "Want to take the red pill?" And on the back, there's a big Bible, and it says, "Read the red letters." Because when you read the red letters, what Jesus said, and when you compare it to the rest of the Bible, where he never once broke the law of God, he never once strayed from it, he never once taught anything outside of it. Once you realize that, you've taken the red pill, and you realize, Christmas, Easter, what? Those aren't things of God, are they? The Sabbath, on Sunday, and buying things on the Sabbath, that's not what God says either. You broke the fourth wall. Congratulations. It's scary, isn't it? But it's so fun. But if I keep that to myself, what is the point? I'm already having, friends ask me questions, and it's
what
so
about
beautiful.
this? So here's the thing. So you've been taught something wrong your whole life. What really do you have to lose to look into it?
Exactly.
Because if in fact you have been taught something wrong your whole life, well, at least you'll have the truth.
Well, people can't stand having their worldview shattered.
And I get it. It is scary.
It's mostly because we're so dang tired. We are so tired from running the circles that we are told to run, and we are not sure of the reason we're supposed to run it, that trying to process anything new is exhausting.
Yeah. Well, look here. So for those who may be listening to this, and this is maybe your first time hearing that the church has been telling you wrong things. Here's a good litmus test. Ask your pastor when you see him what significance.
Respectfully.
Just like, hey, I've got a question. I see a lot on the news that they've got this UFO disclosure. How does this fit into the Bible and end times prophecy?
Oh, that's a big one to start with.
9 out of 10 pastors cannot tell you what it is.
How about we start them off on a simpler one? The one I love to get people with.
The reason I use that one is because a lot of people our age are looking at this, and they see shows like Ancient Aliens, which is the History Channel's #1 rated show, by the way.
Oh yeah,
and they have no paradigm to fit it in. And then they see all this evidence presented for these beings from the stars coming. They ask their pastors about it, and their pastors say, well, it doesn't really matter. And then a lot of them, this is why 80%,
not a salvation issue.
80%, it is, though. Listen.
I know it is, but that's what the pastor will say.
But this is what I'm saying. The pastor will say it's not a salvation issue, but 80% of teenagers from Christian families go off to college and become atheists because they'll hear about panspermia inside their college and things like that, and it just shatters their worldview. Because they're not being taught. The church is so caught up on giving people milk that people are starving spiritually.
Well, and parents are so concerned with, I got to make sure my child is in church on Sunday and everything will work itself out after that. They're not really worried. Well, I'm not going to lump them all because there are some, but the majority, especially that I've encountered, they're not even concerned with the rest of the time. They think if I have my child in church on Sundays in their best clothes, sitting in the seat, not talking, not moving, taking notes, opening the Bible, singing hymns, they'll be fine.
It's just like the people that will half the time forget to wake their children up to take them to school, but then will drop them off at every single vacation Bible school throughout the summer just so they don't have to be around them.
Woo.
I mean, it's ridiculous. What it is it comes down to lazy parenting. You don't want to do your job, so you just push your kids on everybody else. And you ask me, maybe you shouldn't have kids. That's harsh, but I mean, good God, we're dealing with people's souls here, people. Wake up.
Especially with the children, because that's the generation we're leaving the world to. And they're so confused about what they think. They think that what they're supposed to be concerned with is, do I really feel like a boy? I mean, or should I, keep thinking about this? Maybe I'm a girl because everyone else is doing it?
I was on YouTube the other day. A guy was looking at memes on it because, I love my meme channels. Yeah. And the video said controversial statements from movies in 2021. And it showed that movie where the little kid said, boys have penises and girls have vaginas. Like, why is that a controversial statement in 2021?
That's a fact.
It's a scientific fact.
But
if you tell people that, you're a bigot.
I'm to the point now in my business, there are things happening in the works that pretty soon I may not be allowed to call my clients mothers. I'll have to call them people. Birthing persons.
That's what happens when you have somebody with dementia running the country. Just throwing that out there.
But understand where the love comes into all this. You don't want to look at these children or even these parents of these children because they're probably, when they hear it from their children, they might be scared to death too. Like, what do I do? Remember the love and remember the wisdom that you've collected, and don't let it be grasping for the wind or vanity. You share it. Because in all honesty, a lot of what it is the way that the past generations have raised their kids. They say, this is the role that we fit in. So if a boy likes to play with Barbie dolls, then he's not really a man. Or if he cries at sad movies, he's more feminine, or effeminate than other men. So then he starts thinking, I cry at sad movies. I like to go, get myself new shoes, even if they're, just regular. I like to get myself new sneakers.
Well, I went to cosmetology school. Remember how everybody, he must be gay.
Yeah, everyone. Gay Trey. That's what they called him all the time. And
what an unfortunate name.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And, just because he did something that mainly females do. But what about barbers? They're men who cut hair.
Right, but they don't dye hair. They don't do nails, which, let's be honest. I was really good at doing people's nails.
And perms, too.
I was really good I was good at jerry curls. But those are hard to do.
The past generations have made it where the roles of genders are so stringent. Our kids are out there thinking, well, because I'm a girl who likes to play in the dirt, then I'm not really a girl. Well, I must be a boy.
Well, think about this, right? So girls play with Barbies, but boys have their G.I. Joe dolls, right? Mm-hmm. But doesn't G.I. Joe need a girlfriend to come home to when he gets back from the war, or a wife? Or let's do it like a wife.
Yeah.
I never got that. I would play with Barbies in a heartbeat. Parker, one of his favorite things as a kid was Polly Pockets.
Loved Polly Pockets.
But look at him now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mechanic.
He's a mechanic. Is there any more like
manly,
stereotypical
burly job than
right?
that?
He's a grease monkey. Like that's like back in the 50s. That was like the manliest man thing you could do.
Right, but to be clear, I know some fantastic women mechanics too. See, they're outside of their gender roles that we have defined so tightly.
Right, but what's wrong? What's wrong with a woman working on cars? Or like one of the big ones, one of the big ones I'm hearing in like the Presbyterian and Reformed circles right now is this whole thing about the women in war.
Yeah.
But what about what's her name that drove the spike through Sisera's head?
Oh yeah, I mean she was. Just
she
sitting
did
there in her
everything
tent.
that a man couldn't, and God did it to prove a point because the men had weak faith.
Yeah.
Or the fact that the leader of Israel at that time was a woman. Gasp.
Yeah, I mean, what about the female judge?
That was Deborah. That's who I was just talking about.
Yeah, I was adding.
No, like I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, I mean, Deborah, the female judge, she was leading Israel at the time. She was a leader. She was a judge. She made decisions. Just like there are female judges sitting on the bench right now that are better than any male judge, sometimes. Because listen, if you collect your wisdom from the Bible, what does it tell us about male and female? We have our roles in the home. We have our roles in the church, and we're told not to wear each other's clothes. That's it, okay? There is nothing that says, a man shall not like to get his feet done. I know men who love pedicures because they get,
Well, it's really good for your circulation.
Yeah, I mean.
Just because you get a pedicure doesn't mean you have to have your toenails painted.
No, I mean, you can just get the massage and get your heels scraped and all that. I mean, or,
like it's really good for your circulation. I can't tell you, like I'm not a doctor or a nurse, but I would imagine poor blood flow in your feet leads to strokes, blood clots, things like that.
You're absolutely right. That's something I see in my pregnant moms. Their feet. Any of you who have had a baby, the feet pressure is out of this world. It hurts so much.
Well, I would imagine so because you've got so much extra blood flow going to the placenta to make sure that the baby is healthy. I mean, look what just happened to one of our friends. Poor blood flow to the placenta led to the twins getting here early.
Yeah,
like 2 months early.
Yeah, but thank God they're healthy. But yeah, and the Bible also doesn't say, woman shall not, get dirty and like to work on cars. Nowhere does the Bible say this. It says don't wear each other's clothes, know your roles in the church, and know your roles in the home. And that doesn't mean, it doesn't say wife must do all dishes and man is final say on everything. The man is the head, but the wife is the neck. Each one can't work without the other.
Well, what's the old adage? God didn't, and you can find this in Matthew Henry's commentary on the book of Genesis. He said God didn't pull, the woman from like Adam's head because she was supposed to be above him, or down from his feet because he was supposed to stomp on her. Mm-hmm. Or I'm paraphrasing. I'm probably butchering it.
It's all right, but
but he pulled him from the rib because they're equals.
Not only that, but she is always at his side and she's under his wing of protection because he is the protector of the home. That's why it's under the arm, because he always, metaphorically has his arm wrapped around his wife protecting her, and she's right there equal at his side. And anybody who knows me knows how much I hate dishes, and Trey does a lot of dishes in this house. That doesn't
I probably don't do them
that,
as often as I should, but I try when I have the ability and the time.
And he does a wonderful job. But that doesn't mean that he's taken away my effeminate role in this house and that he has become more effeminate, because the Bible doesn't say woman shall do dishes.
There's a Bible verse about a man doing dishes, but I can't remember what it is. And it's also a man's job to make the coffee. Hebrews. Dad joke there for you.
But I want to rip away that vanity. I need to rip away that vanity in your life, because God is tired of us running the rat race and not. We're living our purpose.
What do rats and rodents in general typically run on?
Wheels.
They run and they run and they run and they run and they get nowhere.
Exactly.
Unless you were like my pet mice growing up. Little Bonnie used to have one of the grilled ones, and she used to run and grab onto it and then flip upside down. It was the funniest thing.
But God is tired we're living our purpose, but if we're not realizing it, we can't fulfill that purpose. You don't need to think, if only I have this next job or I have X amount of dollars, then finally, I can save the world. Because number one, you're not saving the world. But it's like that story.
Nor is it your job to save the world.
No.
Your job is to point people to the one who can, and to teach them his commandments.
People give themselves these incredible far out, out of this way, what we're not even told to, do to try to attain. They try to put it on themselves. When I'm perfect, I'll go serve the kingdom of God. When I'm done working on me. In reality, you work on you along the way.
Well, that's the biggest lie. That's how the devil gets people, is he whispers in their ear and says, you know what? You're not good enough.
Oh, yeah.
To be a disciple of Christ.
I've heard that. Look
at Samson. He was put in the Bible for a reason. Like, I hate to pick on the guy, but the dude was a total screw up, right?
Right.
He did something wrong every single time. But look how God used him, even in his failures. He used Samson's failures to bring Samson to the perfect place where he could destroy the Philistines. And he destroyed them from within, because all his screw-ups got him captured and his eyes gouged out. Mm-hmm. But, the beauty of it, Samson at the end, he didn't let it stop him. He asked God for the strength to give his own life to bring down the Philistines, which in a way is actually, it points to Jesus, who was willing to be humbled himself by taking on flesh, by becoming human, and he died on the cross for us. Using a symbol of the enemy, because there's good evidence to point to the fact that the cross is tied to Mithra, which is a type of Antichrist. And Jesus used that pagan symbol to defeat death and to bruise the head of the serpent. And yes, if your Bible translation says crushed, you've got a wrong Bible translation, because the book of Revelation says that deadly head wound is healed. Therefore, it only bruised it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Bible translations matter, guys. But but that's what, it all, you can't. The only way that you are not good enough for the kingdom is to never accept the call.
Exactly. So, to give y'all an example, I've not had an easy life, not at all, not one moment of it did I, feel like things were going smoothly up until I met my husband. And, things still weren't smooth, but I was happy, But even back in my darkest days, when I was doing horrible things to myself because I didn't feel good enough, the people pleaser in me, when I wasn't perfect and I was down and I was bruised and I was doing horrible things to hurt myself behind closed doors that I told not a soul in this world about at the time, I would see people at school and I would do whatever I could. They were having a bad day, they were crying, or they were failing math, and I would, I'm not tooting my own horn. This is an example that I need to give you. I remember staying after school for hours tutoring so that people could, pass math tests. Even though I was, nowhere near perfect, I wasn't, good enough, and I still am not, but I didn't have to be. Because the little bit of knowledge that I had that I could do some good in the world, I passed on. Even though I wasn't perfect, I wasn't, ready, I didn't know the word like I was supposed to. I showed a little bit of love in that act when I was so down myself that only God himself found me.
Well, and look at the Bible. You talk about knowing the word. Did Jesus pick the Pharisees who knew the Bible almost too well? And the reason I say knew it too well is because they went so far with it that they ended up contradicting the very commands they said they were following. But look, he used somebody like Matthew, who was a tax collector and was
scorned.
Right, but so here's the thing. When you look at Matthew 18, Jesus says that if your brother offends you, you go to him, right? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't repent, you bring somebody else.
Right.
And then if that doesn't work, you bring them before the congregation. And then if that doesn't work, they become like a tax collector to you.
Yeah.
It was the most vile of the vile, but that's who Jesus called. I guarantee you Matthew probably didn't know the word very well because he wasn't allowed in the synagogues.
Yeah.
How could he have known it?
All he knew was that when he saw Jesus, he loved him and wanted to follow him. That's all he needs is your heart. Everything else is vanity. Everything else you try to put on to look your best or try to say in the perfect words, it's all vanity. Nothing matters except your heart for him. Mm-hmm. And what you do to serve him. Not when your phone is in your hand and you're recording it and you're trying to show the world. Don't let your left hand know what your right is doing. Or know what your left is doing. Don't let either hand know what's happening. Don't. See, I don't know the word perfectly. I know the gist of what's there and I'm learning more every day. But God gave me this lesson for y'all. I need to rip away this vanity veil. So the next thing I want to go to is the book of Ephesians. We're going to go to Ephesians chapter 2. I'm going to flip there while he's pulling it up for y'all so y'all can see with me. Because, I've called out individuals on how they do things. I've called out parents. I've called out the children. I've called out people who think that I'm weird for eating soup with a fork. Now it's time to...
She's calling out me there.
Mm-hmm. Now it's time to call out the church.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
And I may get a little heated with this one, y'all, because I've been in the church so long.
Don't worry about getting heated. Don't pull your punches. Jesus didn't. Jesus called the Pharisees stupid, and I don't even think people realize that. That's like, so while she's flipping there, I'm going to go on a rant about this because I get so sick and tired of people saying you need to be loving with your words. You need to watch what you say. You need to be kind. You call it for what it is. Sometimes the only way to be loving is not to pull your punches.
That is always the only way to be loving.
When Jesus said that, when you look at, and in the English we miss it, but in most Bible translations it says, are you without understanding? Understand there, the word for without understanding is literally can be translated stupid. Jesus was saying, are you stupid?
If you're not,
that's not a very kind word by today's standards. No. We teach I'll go ahead and tell you, my 5-year-old Meredith is not allowed to say stupid. Because she abuses it. Yeah. She calls her sisters stupid all the time. But there's a time and a place for it, not to go to the chapter you didn't want to go to. But there is a time and a place for harsh words because sometimes that's the only way we can wake people up. But you have to trust the Holy Spirit and use discernment to know what time is what. So I'm stepping off my soapbox. I'm going to hand it back to you.
The best analogy I've ever heard for that is sometimes you got to be the rough side of the sponge and sometimes you got to be the soft side of the sponge. And it's up to you and the discernment God gives you to know which side you got to be.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be the green side of the sponge or the yellow side of the sponge? Because if you've got like some soft, meek, soft-spoken woman who's, one harsh word away from her soul being crushed, you got to discern that you need the soft side of the sponge. You need to come at her with a hug and a snack and somewhere to take a nap and then, talk to her about how Jesus can love on her because you just loved on her the way Jesus wanted you to.
Absolutely.
But if you've got a, 355-pound man who beats on his wife every night and thinks that he is the creme de la creme of the world and he says, he doesn't need God because he made $250K this year, you need to be the green side of the sponge. And then when the green side of the sponge has got all of the scum off the outside and you see that soft inside finally breaking in that man, switch sides.
Yep. But
you need to start out green sometimes.
Absolutely.
So Ephesians 2, verse 8. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. Not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Works don't save. They don't. You didn't get saved by your works. That is not the point of your works.
And what is the point of your works?
The point of your works is to show others.
And show others what? Let's take it one step farther.
Keep going.
Show me your faith by your works.
Exactly.
It's the fruit.
I wanted him to keep going so that y'all could see that we hadn't talked about this, and he literally just said what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean,
married life is so cool, but also, just knowing what the Bible says.
Yeah, but there's no contradictions in the Bible, but the church
Right.
acts like, well, Paul says that it's grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. Right, but James says, show me your faith by your works. The two aren't mutually exclusive.
But here's where we go with this. Here's where I'm calling out you, church building your new Family Life Center.
501c3 churches.
Here's where I'm calling you out. Okay? You can preach all day until you're blue in the faith, not by works, and make your congregation so lazy that they feel like they are doing their due diligence of God just by going to church on Sunday and wearing their best tie. But then you take all that tithe money, and what do? You paint the walls? Did you build a bigger building? Did you buy some fancy pews with the nice cushion seats on them? Did you upgrade your hymnals? Did you tell yourself that in doing all of this, that you're saving more souls? 'Cause you're wrong. It's not. Where are the churches, 'cause I know they're out there, that are taking the money, they're buying ingredients, they're cooking all day on Sunday, and they're delivering meals to people who are shut in and can't work? Where are the churches who are taking all that tithe money, and instead of paying for their preacher's new BMW, because I've seen it happen, not all of them, but I've seen it happen, where are the ones that are taking that money and they're going around to the homeless community and saying, here, go buy yourself a place to sleep tonight. And here's a Bible. Exactly. Not by works can anyone be saved, but you're telling yourself that building that new building and getting more people in there, that's going to save them, is my new building. This bigger building with more seats in it, that's going to save them. If they didn't come in before, they're not coming in now. They can still hear you. But it's not just that one church. There's so many. You're making your congregation feel like if they don't stand up during the worship, and they don't sit down and listen perfectly during the sermon, and if they don't, invite their friends so that there's more tithes in the church, that they're not doing their due diligence of works. But then you just preached the other day that I didn't have to do any works, Pastor. That it was only grace, that my works, they were just a way for me to boast. So why do I have to, make the worship service look pretty and only worship the way you want?
You want to know what it is? It's a scam. It's these new churches, especially the seeker-friendly churches. And I'm going to call out the church that I used to go to. I'm not going to call them out by name, but I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
But they were really bad about everybody had to serve, and all it was free. It was staff that they didn't have to pay.
Exactly.
It's a scam.
But they were making a paycheck.
Oh yeah.
And they'll tell everybody so that the pastor can spend his time studying and preparing for you and giving you better, fresh manna from heaven, because he didn't have to work a job during the week like you did. So that you can get that bigger building with the better air conditioning and the better seats. What happened?
But what are they doing? They're showing their little card saying, hey, look at me. I got the mark of the beast precursor.
But what happened to the churches that were literally just a mound of dirt and one little thing to put the scrolls on, and they all sat there in the heat of the summer because hearing God's word was the only thing that mattered? And they weren't in their best clothes because they didn't have any best clothes. and they couldn't bring anything but pennies for their tithes. What happened to that? What happened to the true faith that if we listen to this word, it'll be all right? That we don't need the air conditioning, and that I don't have to force my children into these uncomfortable shoes and these big frilly dresses because the vanity veil hasn't been ripped away yet. And all I know is that if they look perfect and I put them in church, the world tells me that they'll be okay. And that's all I have to do. And, you know, my works are fulfilled in that. I have been to a church, guys, that I was on crutches. I was a teenager. I was on crutches, okay? Sprained my knee. Could not stand very long. And I was sitting down during the worship service. I got so many dirty looks. It disgusted me to the point then and there I swore I would never step in church again. Thank God.
Let's go ahead and just say that there was somebody who actually said that in your own family that just said you needed to stand.
Oh, yeah. Let's not even forget that point, that I was told that I had to stand up. And so I was forced to stand.
All because they didn't want to look bad.
It's the vanity veil. Listen to me very clearly. Jesus ripped the veil when he died on the cross. Why are you still living behind it? Sorry, the Spirit is flowing heavy in it. I'm not going to say sorry. The Spirit is flowing heavy. Somebody needs to stop living behind the veil. And the others who are listening to this, thank you for passing the message on to the person that you know in your life living behind the veil. Look at them and say, Jesus ripped that veil when he died. And he's alive again. And there is no reason to live behind that veil. Why are you? I have been in churches where I have seen people come in dirty and hungry, or, you know, even, this story, I have to tell it. I always, bombard y'all with my stories, but like I said, it hasn't been an easy life. I was at a church. It was a really big mega church. It was a Pentecostal church. And there was this woman. She would come in every Sunday, and she would sit on the very back row. She would come in about 10 minutes after the service started, and she would leave about, 20 or 30 minutes before it was over. So she was there about a good hour, because Pentecostal churches, they go for quite a while. I was sometimes there from 9 in the morning until 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not even kidding you. So many people talked so bad about that woman because she came late and left early. Oh, she doesn't care enough to be here the whole time? Well, my aunt, the beautiful soul that she is, I love you, Aunt Tammy. Love you. She talked to this woman. Found out the reason she was coming in late and the reason she was leaving early is because she was a single mother and she was trying to get to work on time. She had to get her children up and ready in the mornings, and then she had to drive a long ways to get to that church. Then she had to leave to go to work. She wanted to be there for any amount of time she could. And the church people talk so ugly about her.
If I had it my way, every single church, every single one, even the good ones, just because you can't take the chance, I would have them all closed, just so that way the people who really wanted to worship God could find each other and meet. Mm-hmm. And that way, because let's face it, all the legalistic ones, once the church closed, they're only going out of obligation, so they'd stop going anyway, and you could weed out all the bad ones in a perfect world.
Do you know how many
Now,
times...
of course, it's not a perfect world,
No,
but...
it's not, but do you know how many times that I have heard somebody say, pray for me because I struggle with wanting to read my Bible. Pray for me because I struggle with wanting to find time to pray. The church is not doing its job if there are people in the congregation not in love with the word.
Well, that would require them to be the actual church.
Exactly.
Which
we are
they're
the church.
not.
We are the church.
Look, David had it absolutely right. All these buildings where these people are going, it's just the binding houses for the tares to be bundled. That's all it is. I mean, majority, I hate to say it, and it's heartbreaking, but the majority of these people, if they're not careful, will end up straight in hell. Mm-hmm. And that's why I harp so hard on somebody. I just hear people, well, these people, they're awake, or they're asleep. They're not listening. Hey, I get that. I totally do. This is what we talked about Saturday morning on Dan's show. This came up during the listener call-in segment, and I get that. And you know what? At that point, hey, maybe you've done what you're supposed to do, but somebody has to go into these places, or at least talk with these people, or hey, I mean, if you don't want to physically go, get yourself a cheap microphone and a cheap camera. Or don't even do that. If you've got a cell phone, you got Facebook Live.
Yeah,
just put it up there. Put it up there to get it to these people. Easy. I mean, we got to do what we can. I mean, I don't physically step foot in these churches. I'm probably not welcome. But I mean, number one, because. And I think everybody listening can sympathize. I'm not putting a stupid mask on to go into a church. You can forget it. It's not happening.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to, honey. You have asthma.
Well, I mean, I wear it at customers' houses every now and then, but I take it off. I'm not going to go anywhere where I have to wear it long periods of time. Yeah. There was that place I had to go with really beefy security. I had to wear it there, but I didn't have a choice. Yeah, I mean, there were armed security guards there.
I mean, somebody else's property, that's the thing. But the church is supposed to be open for all, come as you are. Well,
that's supposed to be Jesus' property.
But it's not.
It's not. It's the devil's. I've always called the church the devil's playground.
Guys, God is ripping that vanity veil away. So,
and if you're not careful, if you hold on to it, he's going to rip you right away with it.
Yeah, I mean, ask yourself when you're going about your week after watching this and you're praying and you're thinking about where are the vanity veils in my life. Because, I mean, it's okay that you have them, guys, until somebody puts in front of your face, this is what you're doing. Sometimes it's hard to see. Don't beat yourself up about it. Ask yourself, how can I do this better?
Well, that's what they were talking about. That's what John and John were talking about on their show tonight was you can't just sit there and beat yourself up for the mistakes you made. Eventually, you just have to keep on doing the work of God.
And I mean, ask yourself when you go about the week, every little thing you do, what is the purpose of doing this? How is it glorifying God's kingdom? Because I guarantee you there's an answer for every little thing you're doing. Even in the morning, the first thing I have to do, I have to go to the dump and take trash off. What am I doing? I am making a more sanitary living condition for my family so that they are happy and that I'm taking care of them the way I'm obligated to, so that I can raise them to be people who also do that for their families.
And full transparency, the plan was for me to take it off today. It opened after 2 o'clock, but I spent my time around the house stressing out because I couldn't find the daggone cord to plug that camera into that computer so we could do this tonight.
But guess what? As soon as I went looking, I found it in less than 2 minutes.
My problem is I stress out about little things way too much.
But it's all right.
But you know what it is? That's my vanity veil.
Yeah.
It's one of them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there are many where we...
I mean, really, what does it matter? This thing records audio.
Yeah,
You guys will always be able to find it on our website, worst case scenario, but I was stressed out because I already hadn't gotten this out on the day it was supposed to air. Yeah, like, full transparency, guys. If I can't get this stuff to you when I've said I'm going to get it there, I stress out.
He does very badly because in his mind, it's still hard for him. If he can't deliver it perfectly, he thinks he shouldn't, present it, and not presenting it to him is not an option. So it has to be perfection or nothing. And that's his vanity veil. And we work on that because in the household he grew up in, he felt like he had to do certain things, to get his father's attention and to feel like he was enough for his father. So it's translated to his whole life. I was the same way, with my mother. If it what, and I thought about it as a lot as an adult, but as a child, I just, accepted it. If you're going to do something halfway, don't do it at all. Anybody ever been told that? I know you've been told that, honey.
Well,
know,
and I mean, if you're intentionally setting out to do it halfway, yeah, don't do it.
well, that's one thing. But if you
But do it to the best of your ability. If
you
it's not perfect,
absolutely-
it's okay.
if you absolutely give something your all and it's not perfect and somebody tells you you shouldn't have done it, I mean, so I shouldn't try at all if I can't be perfect. I feel like the Bible says the opposite of that. As an adult, I can understand that. As a child, I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, I have a joke around the house all the time, and it's actually, and that's why it's a joke, it's because it's the complete opposite of my personality. My joke that I say all the time is if at first you don't succeed, give up.
So, for another story for y'all, my 5-year-old is learning about chores. You know, she's been doing them all her life little, but she's starting to have bigger ones. And she saw how much the dishes stress me out. So she got her little stool. You know, she started maybe the first time, maybe like 3 months ago. She got her little stool, pulled it up to the sink, and put soap on the sponge, and she washed every dish in that sink. And, you know, I go over there, and they're all in the strainer. Of course, there's spots all over them. You know, they're not clean.
But she's 5.
She turned around and was beaming, so happy. It said, "Mom, I did the dishes for you."
Keep in mind, Sarah was outside. And she came in the house. Meredith had disappeared in the house. Everybody else was outside. Meredith came in,
I had to put the
took
chickens
her
away.
shoes off, and just did the dishes without anybody asking her.
Nope.
She just came in and was like, "Hey, Mom, I did these for you."
Yeah, I mean, we were outside letting the chickens play, and she was like going inside just randomly. And so I had to gather all the chickens to get the kids inside, and I come in, and she's just beaming, guys. The look on her face, it was like pure love for me and pure joy that she was able to give me something. Just like the woman who all she had was, you know, the 2 coins.
Yeah, the 2 mites.
And she gave it with such an open heart. She gave more. Just like me doing the dishes is one thing. It's my vanity of vanities, which they have to be done for sanitary. But, you know, when there's a few dishes in the sink, my vanity of vanities says, people can't come over right now. There's dishes in my sink. It's not perfect. She did it, and it wasn't perfect. But, you know, she turned around and was beaming so hard. I scooped her up into a big hug, and we, you know, just swung around in a circle. I said, "I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. Thank you." Because I'm not going to tell her, if you can't do it, if you can only do it, you know, halfway right, don't do it at all. Why would I do that?
Well, that sets a standard for a child.
It does, for their whole life. I ended up being called a very lazy individual for most of my teenager.
You've been called worse than that.
I've been called a lot worse than that, but because I was told if I couldn't do it perfectly, there was no point in me trying. But imagine every time you look at your child, you see a 5-year-old so proud because she did the dishes for her mommy. I don't care. You know,
Without being asked.
Without being asked.
That's what's insane.
When she went to bed that night, I woke up early the next morning before she got up, and I rewashed all the dishes and put them back in their place, and she never knew. And I'll never tell her. Because I'm so proud of her that she gave me everything she had to give. That's what Jesus wants from you. He wants everything you have to give. He didn't ask for perfect. He didn't ask for your vanity of vanities in your best Sunday clothes.
No, and understand when the verse says be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, look up what that word perfect means.
Always.
And if you need some help, go to the Doctrine of Christ series, which you can also now find on nowuctv.org. But you can also find it on the YouTube channel Jimmy Vision, and there's a whole episode just dedicated to that. Because I think a lot of people, when they're not grounded in the Word, look at that and they give up right then.
They think, because we've been told all our life, if you can only do it halfway, don't do it.
We've been told perfect sometimes, and there are cases where perfect means without spot or blemish. Mm-hmm. But understand that was referring to a genetic purity, right?
But as long as
just like when it said Noah was perfect in his generations, it was a genetic purity. That word even then means complete.
Just by existing in this world, our outside is going to be spotted and blemished. But if we're giving our all to Jesus, he fills the gaps. He meets us halfway.
Right. Look who was the one. Look at one of the ones who did some of the most groundbreaking work in the Bible, and that's Peter. Mm-hmm. Peter, it was his sermon that God used to redeem 3,000 people on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. And but let's back up just a few pages. Jesus is being arrested and people saying, hey, he's one of the disciples of Jesus. He said, no, I've never met him. Mm-hmm. But look what he did. By the way, this was after Jesus said, if you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father, right?
Yeah, Peter
But the beauty is Peter repented. And Jesus said, Peter, do you love me? He said, do you agape me?
Yeah.
And he said, I phileo. Jesus said, do you have that godly, unconditional love?
All-consuming. Yeah,
all-consuming. And Peter said, I love you in a very, phileo is where we get our word Philadelphia.
Like brotherhood.
Yeah.
You're my boy, you're my brother.
Yeah, and that's still the kind of love hey, I got your back. I'd do almost anything for you.
Yeah, I mean.
And Jesus accepted that the last time he said, Peter, do you phileo me? And what'd he say every time? Feed my sheep, feed my sheep. What did Peter do? He fed his sheep. Even though he had royally screwed up.
And let's look at the example in the Old Testament. Let's look at Ruth. Ruth was traveling with her mother-in-law. Literally the only thing, her husband was gone. Literally the only thing she had to give to Naomi, whither thou goest, I will go.
Yeah, they were basically they were homeless.
Yeah. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God shall be my God.
And look what happened.
King David.
Not only that, let's take it one king further. Jesus.
Because all Ruth had to give at that time was her sacrifice of her time.
Loyalty.
Her loyalty.
It was her
Naomi.
Loyalty.
All she had was her time. That's it, and her heart. She gave it to Naomi, who served the living God. Even though Naomi was down and said, call me Mara, because it means bitter, because, I'm a
just
bitter
like
person.
The bitter waters.
Yeah. That even though Naomi was down, and she was complaining, because who wouldn't at that point?
She lost everything.
Every single
everything.
She had, her and two daughter-in-laws.
One of which left halfway through the journey.
Yeah, Orpah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Orpah.
She left, and because she was given permission, Naomi said, you can go. I wouldn't expect you to, stay and take care of me. And Ruth said, I will. Where you go, I go. Where you lodge, I lodge. And because of that, and Naomi guided her to her husband on the threshing floor, Boaz.
Right, and Ruth was from a people whose males were never to be allowed into the congregation of Israel.
It's the Moabites, right?
Yeah.
Ah.
Which were the descendants of Lot and his daughter.
And look what came out of that.
Yeah, God used that bloodline, redeemed it, and brought Jesus through it.
For a reason, guys. For a reason. To show, if you be like Ruth, all you have to do is give what you have at the time.
What is the whole point of some of these older stories, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got Abraham, the father of many nations, right?
Right.
Literally, like many nations.
Many. More than the stars in the sky and the sands of the sea.
Right. The Gentile bloodlines are redeemed through Abraham's promise. Galatians 3 says that if you be, if you're in Christ, you are a seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise, right?
Right.
So, but look what Abraham did. Abraham screwed up royally not once, but twice, did the same thing twice.
With Sarah.
Yeah. One time in Egypt, one time in the land of the Philistines.
To give him as much credit as you can, he wasn't technically lying, but he wasn't telling the whole truth either.
He wasn't technically lying. But he was a little bit because, if you look, technically she was his sister, but it was an adopted sister, right?
Right.
Because she was the daughter of, I believe, his father's brother. Mm-hmm. Or she may have even been the daughter of one of his brothers.
Right. But either way.
It was a, Abraham, instead of And we all do this, but instead of trusting God, we forget in crunch time. We have a tendency to forget the great things God has already done, and we focus on our own fear, right? But here's the point. Abraham, Isaac ended up doing the same thing. Jacob screwed up royally multiple times.
Right.
The whole point is you look through every person in the Bible other than Jesus, and you will find somewhere where they messed up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The mess ups are key because it doesn't matter how many times you mess up. Proverbs says you can fall 7 times. A wise man will fall 7 times, but he gets back up. Mm-hmm. It's the fool who stays down. And if you get so caught up on your failures that you don't serve Jesus Christ, you don't go out and make disciples, then you are a fool.
And that actually brings me into the last part of Ecclesiastes I want to go over, and that's Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and starting in verse 9. We're all down. We all make mistakes. And part of the reason that we can get back up or either notice those mistakes if we don't notice them is because of the people we're surrounded by. And who you surround yourself with is so, so important. You ever heard that old Southern saying, you lie down with the dogs, you're going to get fleas?
Yep. That's actually one of the few that I have heard. Been from the South, born and raised, but
he's from the city South. So,
well, not only that, but my mom's from California.
So a lot of things.
My dad's from Greenville, North Carolina, which is a college town, always has been.
So there's a lot of Yanks there.
Yeah.
But a lot of things I say in like old sayings. Is it storming?
No, that's me breathing into my microphone. Oh. Sorry. I'm not even a mouth breather. I'm a nose breather, but my nostrils are so daggone big. I'm just being honest.
Did you just do it again? Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's storming outside.
It's because I don't have a windscreen on this microphone.
It's all
Meredith
right.
ate it.
Yeah, she's
autistic, and she
has a sensory processing disorder, meaning she's severely understimulated. Normally you deal with overstimulation in autistic kids, but she's understimulated. She seeks a lot of extra input to make her brain feel satisfied, so she chews on things. But it's okay because we
found her chewing on her popper earlier. No, it wasn't even her. She was chewing on Lydia's.
Oh yeah, if y'all seen those new Pop-It toys with the buttons in them that you flip them and they do it both ways.
They're so satisfying.
Rubber. But to get back, chapter 4, verse 9, the value of a friend is what the subheading says.
Are you sure that's chapter 4?
Yes. Ecclesiastes 4 and 9.
Oh, 2 are better than 1. I see.
The value of a friend is a subheading in my Bible.
Gotcha.
2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. The people you have around you are going to make or break the hard times in your life. Can you still get back up with just Jesus alone? Yeah, because that's all you need is Jesus.
But if you have Jesus, you're never truly alone.
Exactly. But the people that are around us when we have disconnected from Jesus because that vanity veil is so thick and we are feeling like because I don't have the perfect hair and the perfect body and the perfect clothes to go out into the world that I'm not good enough. And when we're down in those dumps and we have cut ourselves off from Jesus because those thoughts are overwhelming, it's the people around us, those friends, those companions that can help draw us back to the straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which, by the way, that's if you look on our website, that's our slogan, pointing you back to the straight and narrow.
So it all begs the question: not only what kind of friends do you have, but what kind of friend are you?
Ooh, that's the real question.
When your friends are gone, do you talk about them? Do you gossip about them? Do you run them down? If your friend came to your door and said, "Hey, I lost my house, in a fire. I need a place to stay. Can I stay with you?" Would you open your door? Would you open your fridge?
Hint, hint. It's not enough to say, "Oh, I'll pray for you."
It's not enough to say, "I'll pray for you," or come to church. If
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh. Tell them.
I have to.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. You're never gonna watch this, but you know who you are. If you
Has that person found a home, by the way?
yes.
Okay, because I know you told them they were welcome here, but I never heard from them, and I quite frankly forgot to follow up on that.
We're gonna be a segue, but
That's fine.
yeah.
That's fine.
But yeah, I can't name names on that one because that's a sensitive situation.
Absolutely.
But if your friend knocked on your door and said, "My husband's beating on me pretty bad and I need to get away from him, but I have no money," you gonna open your door?
By the way, that's not one of the times to tell them. That's not one of the times to pull out Jesus' teachings on divorce.
No, it's not.
That's the absolute worst time to do that, because when you are beating on the one that you promised to have and to hold and to protect,
you broke your vows.
You have broken your vows. You have literally been unfaithful at that point.
Exactly.
And of course, everybody, I'll say majority of the people listening to this know that. And so we're preaching to the choir. But for those who don't, who are babes and don't, like, I mean, that's a legitimate, like, that's one thing people, like, literally worry themselves sick about. Well, is people will sit there and take that beating or that verbal abuse because they think about their kids and they say, well, I want my kids to be I don't want my kids coming from a broken home.
Yeah.
But your home is already broken at that point, and you're doing your children more harm than you are good. Get out of there.
So, for a visual for y'all, when we're going down to verse 12, where it says a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So it's talking about three people, obviously. So if you look at these three pins, can they see these three pins?
Hold on. I can't see anything but the full screen, so. Yeah, they can see them.
So here I have three pins. Don't look at the fact that they're different colors because this is what I just had. They are all the same size. They are all the same length. Okay? Virtually equals. So if I were to, hit the top of them, try to pull them apart, when I'm gripping onto them and they're together, nothing's happening. What do you think would happen if instead of one of these pins, I don't have anything thinner.
There's some paper behind you.
No, I need like a thin string, but just imagine that it was thinner than these other two. These two are the same size, and then you have a thin string right here. When I go to beating on it and I go to pulling on it, these two that are the same size, they're going to be okay. But that thin string, it's going to be pulled away. So need not concern yourself if there's someone around you that is not a friend that they are supposed to be biblically, because a threefold cord is not quickly broken. But if all those...
That doesn't mean it can't be broken, but it's going to take a lot longer than it would if it was just one piece of that threefold cord.
Yeah, not necessarily, because if one of those strands of the cord is thin, that's the first thing that's going to break. And then you can take the time to find a cord that is the same size as you and your friends and make yourself a new rope. Okay? Don't concern yourself with it. You stay the course. Okay? And if those friends, they're going to get bored with you when they go to gossip about people and you're like, sorry, I'm not doing that. Or they say, oh my gosh, can you believe this new outfit? It's only $200 and I can just put it on my credit card, even though I'm already in so much credit card debt, I'm drowning. And you say, no thanks, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to.
Or hey, come yard selling on the Sabbath with us.
Yeah. Or let's go to this sale. It's only open on Saturdays. No thanks, I'm not going to do that. Eventually, they're going to break themselves off because they're not going to want to be around you.
Yeah,
You stay the
there's
course.
two possibilities. They break off, or, God in his mercy brings them around.
Exactly. They're either going to break off or you are going to be the influence in their life that thickens that cord and makes it the same size as you. And then you guys can get thicker together as you learn and become better cords. But
right. But there's also the possibility. There's also this possibility too. If you guys have ever been around pear trees get really sick.
Oh, yeah.
You have to remove the sick branches before it kills the whole tree.
Mm-hmm.
We can attest we have 2 dead pear trees in our yard that have to come down because we couldn't get to them in time.
Yeah, the Bradford pear trees. We call them fish trees in the South because they smell like fish when they bloom. And
well, for some of us, they used to.
Yes, COVID took my smell in December. I had it in December, and I still can't smell all the way.
But you can smell some, which is better than last month.
Yeah, I'm starting to, I have to think about it. Like, as long as I know that I'm supposed to be smelling something, I'll get a whiff. But it's not what it's supposed to smell like, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what a lot of stuff smells like. That's the thorn in my side, like Paul's thorn in his side. That's the thorn in my side right now. If God chooses to give it back to me, I will say thank you. If he chooses to keep it from me, I will say thank you. Back to my point, don't isolate people and try to, like, block them out when you think that they're not a cord that you need in your life. Because that's not showing the love of God. You keep showing them that love, being nice, praying for them, spending time with them. But as long as you're following the Bible and only doing things that line up with his word, like not going shopping with them at the mega sales on Saturdays, and not, putting yourself into credit card debt because Vanity of Vanities says that new dress is what's going to finally make you happy in life, or gossiping about people makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. That's what's going to pull those weak cords away, or either hopefully, you pray enough and it thickens them and they, get on that level with you, and then y'all can rise to a new level as friends together. But don't isolate them. Don't become what they are by talking about them with your other friends that are the same size as you, because then you thin yourself out. You keep being the friend that the Bible says that you're supposed to be, and watch his word work it out.
The friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
Exactly. And the last thing that I want to go over, because I'm super, super tired, because it's probably past midnight.
It's way past midnight. We've been going for an hour and a half.
Holy mess.
Yeah.
This was a beautiful study. So the last thing that I need to talk about is Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Yes, I know there's a lot more in Ecclesiastes, guys, but this is the part that I was told to
that's what these
deliver
podcasts are designed to be. They're supposed to be a jumping off point for you to study for yourself.
So
because you're never gonna get spiritually fulfilled just listening to me or listening to Sarah or listening to John or David or Dan. You pick. I mean, you're never gonna get satisfied just listening to us. It's so important.
Even if you listen to them all simultaneously,
which I don't recommend.
You have to dig into the word yourself regardless.
Yep. This is your walk with Jesus.
All we can do is give you a little bit of
sometimes it's overwhelming to figure out where to go. We're just here as messengers to hopefully give you a jumping off point. All right, chapter 5.
Verse 2. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven and you on earth. Therefore let your words be few. For a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. Better not to vow than to vow and not pay. So that brings me to something that is also very common to say here in the South. You've heard it. I know you have. I swear to God.
Oh, yeah.
I swear to God, I'm going to do it when I get home. Or I swear to God, I saw this, thing, and I'm going to be like that person. I swear to God, one day I'm going to be president.
I used to be really bad for saying that.
Guys, that is a vow before God. Not
only that, but what does Jesus say about it? Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. He says, don't even swear. Don't even make vows.
Right. Because just like Ecclesiastes said, better not to vow than to vow and not pay.
Right.
Saying stuff like that and not paying on it is another vanity.
Well, and that's why it's so important. This is if for whatever reason you're new to this channel, one of the things we like to do here is understand that the reason the church is so screwed up today is because they don't take Jesus as the final authority on everything.
Right.
Because, well, let's face it, most people in the church don't read their Bibles, right? They say, pray for me to have the desire. No, the desire starts with you.
Exactly.
We can pray for you all we want. You can pray till you're blue in the
time.
face, but if you don't have the faith to step out there, then you know what? You're just going to sit in that boat for the rest of your life. So understand,
No oars.
Jesus, yeah, you're gonna head up Chocolate Creek without a popsicle stick, as Gingy likes to say.
Or you're going to just blow whichever way the wind takes you, just like the chaff.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's the thing. Jesus is the final authority on everything. Jesus utters no final words, utters no idle words, I should say. And understand that Jesus is pulling out these obscure references from the scriptures. Why? Because he's the one who gave the people the words to say in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, when you do these things, like, who are you trying to impress? Are you actually saying... because when people said, I swear to God in the Bible, you better pay. You better do what you said. What's the story?
Yeah, it wasn't an idle saying, that's for sure.
What's the story of the guy in the war? And he said, God, if you just let me through this.
That was in the book of Judges. He said,
if you let me win this, if you give me victory,
I will offer to you the first thing
that comes out of my doors when I get home, or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and
it was his daughter.
Yeah, and she ended up being a virgin in the temple, most likely.
Yeah, a lot of people read.
A lot of people think that it was
sacrificed.
a human sacrifice thing.
That's not what happened, guys. Okay, so she went out and she said, Father, whatever God said for you to do, or whatever you promised to God, it is good.
Yeah.
Just please allow me to go into the wilderness with
she was basically mourning her virginity because she was going to keep it forever, which was a shame to a woman back then.
Right. So she went with her friends into the wilderness.
Not the shame to be a virgin, but the shame that you would never get married or bear children. That's the greatest honor that God ever gave to women.
Yeah, I mean, it's
to the point where there are places in the Bible where, like, look at Hannah. Hannah, prayed so hard that Eli thought she was drunk at the foot of the tabernacle.
Yeah,
because she was that ashamed that she couldn't have children. She
was so happy that she gave that child to God as soon as he was weaned.
Yeah, so he was an offering. So don't understand that just because somebody offers something to God, it's not always a sacrifice.
Yeah.
The sacrifice was
that they didn't get to be with you.
He didn't get to see his daughter get married.
Yeah, I mean,
in today's society, imagine being a father of a daughter and you never get to walk her down the aisle.
Exactly. And I mean, but that was his vow. And even though he cried, and I'm sure he thought about not doing it.
And I'm sure he relived it. You think about it. You say something like that, and then you have to live with the fact that you spoke an idol. Like, how many times you just say, God, if you just get me through this, I promise I'll go to church every Sunday. Or, God, if you just get me through this, I promise I'll never cuss again.
Well, and there's an episode of George Lopez. Like, I used to love watching the George Lopez show, every night. So
it came on at 1 a.m. on Nick at Night.
There's this episode where his dog, Mr. Needles, was really, really sick, and he was going to die.
Right.
They said he's got cancer. He's got a tumor so large he can't live, and they couldn't afford the surgery to try to remove the tumor. So George's son in the show, Max, he said, Dad, will you pray with me? And he got down beside his bed and said, God, if you just heal Mr. Needles and make him not sick anymore, I will be nice to my sister for a whole month. And George was thinking, what's the point of this? And he gets down there and says, God, please, heal Mr. Needles. And Max was like, Dad, come on, please pray with me. And George gets down on his knees and says, God, if you make Mr. Needles all better, I will crawl on my knees up the cobblestone path to that church in Mexico. And I forgot the name of the church, but people crawled on their knees up the cobblestone path to that church as a part of their vow. He said, if you just heal Mr. Needles, I will crawl on my knees on that cobblestone path up to the church. And of course, he didn't think anything else of it. The next morning, the dog's eating out of his bowl. He's jumping around. He's playing. He's doing flips. They take him to the vet. The vet says the tumor's gone. And he said, no, you must have the wrong scans. Disbelief the first thing, but
right. That's the first thing we do when God does something. Well, that can't be right.
Exactly. But the little boy, he was like, God did it. God did what he said he was going to do. Now I'm going to be nice to my sister a whole month. Dad, when are you going to go to the church and crawl on your knees? He was like, Max, I'm really busy and this and that. And there's a part where he cuts up his jeans and puts fake blood all over his knees and is going to fake it. But I forgot who talks to him about it. And he's like, I'd
be surprised if it was Benny.
God doesn't work like that. God will, repay you for that if you don't do what you promised. And eventually he goes to that church and, crawls up that path. And it's kind of funny at the end. He sees this man crawling beside him. He said, what brings you here? The man said, my village was flooded. I was trapped on the roof of my house for days with no food. And I looked up to heaven and I cried to God and said, if you just save me and get me out of this, I would crawl up this path on my knees. He said, what brings you here? He said, my kid's dog got sick. And it's really an example of he spoke idly, didn't think about, he would really have to do
because
it.
Because these are not the things that God wants from us. Just like God didn't want him to offer the first thing that he saw upon his arrival home.
But when you make that promise to God, God is a man of his word. He's God of his word.
You know what it reminds me of? That final scene from Old Brother, Where Art Thou? Where the levee's about to break and George Clooney, who's like his character's the big atheist in that and it's like to have a logical reason for everything, gets down on his knees and it's this big thing and he prays and then the flood comes but they're all safe.
Yeah.
And they're like, see, Everett, it did this. And he was like, nah, there's probably some logical, scientific explanation. And, some people, they make the promise and they don't even have the gall to follow through with it. But that's not what God wants anyway. It goes back to that. But I require mercy rather than sacrifice.
But because you spoke those words, you're going to have to account for them.
Yeah.
Be sure of that.
What does Jesus say? He says that every idle word will be accounted for, right?
Exactly.
And that's a scary thought.
Every single idle word you have thought in your head, said under your breath, or said out loud will be accounted for.
I've said so many idle words just today. That's scary.
So take account of that, because saying promises in front of a group of people just because you want to look good, that is another vanity. Fear God and keep your vows. If you say it, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't say it. Don't do it. Don't say it to look good in front of people. Like, what is the point? Who are you trying to impress? Because I'm pretty sure at the end of this life, when you die, you're only standing in front of him.
Yeah.
I think that is a beautiful note to end on.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, we could talk all night because I married a man who is literally my other half, and we just bounce off of each other and we get into these discussions. And
sometimes we get so busy. Like this week, I think this might be this time. Here we are talking to everybody else, and this might be the only time that we've had this week to sit here and talk to each other about stuff like this.
We
have epically failed on that aspect of our marriage this week.
Yeah, I mean they called me, so we're getting the carpet. We need a new carpet throughout the whole house. It was ugly white Olaf and Berber carpet. It was stained everywhere.
I think they got a glimpse of some of the carpet in a video I posted earlier about how we were revamping this studio area. Oh
gosh, it's awful, guys. And so I went and they had this deal where I got
not
free
the new
installation.
carpet. The new carpet looks good. That's what they saw.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the old carpet.
No.
But I went and they had the deal with the free installation, so I paid for it, and they said, okay, your carpet should be here on July 2nd. Then we'll call you for install. So I had to get everything off the floor, every single thing off of the carpet of this floor.
We own a lot of junk too.
Not anymore. I threw most of it away.
Yeah, thank God.
Everything in every closet, every bed, couch, chair, book, bookshelf, everything had to get off the floor. I was like, cool. So July 2nd is when the carpet gets in, and then they'll schedule it. So I've got 2 weeks. So I had done one closet. Me and him took the time. We got everything out of Meredith's closet and put it up in the attic.
Which is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I hate my attic, mainly because it's hot. I just don't do really well in the hot.
It's
but
hot.
I
There's a
hate
bunch of
messing
junk
with
up there.
closets. I can't stand it.
So we did that one thing. I said, that's cool. So next weekend, we can do the rest of the closets. And the weekend after that, we can go ahead and do all the furniture. And I would be doing the little stuff throughout the week because I'm home with the kids. I get a call on Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. As a matter of fact, what's today? Today is Sunday. It was last Wednesday. I got a call and said, Miss Harris, your carpet is in, and we're going to be there Friday between 1 and 3 to install it. And it should only take a few hours. I said, well, that's great. And she said, okay, if you have any questions, call me. Thank you. Have a nice day. So what I had 2 weeks to do, I had to do in less than 2 days. It was 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. They were coming at 3 o'clock on a Friday. So I have done nothing but wake up at 5 and go to bed after 10, moving stuff off the floor.
Yeah, that's actually why this show is airing a day later than it normally does. For all the new subscribers, we have 2 shows a week. That'll be going up tomorrow night, Monday night.
Okay.
We have 2 shows a week. We have a news show on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m., and we have our main podcast, which is 5 p.m. on Sunday nights. But everything was gone. I literally set up my computer and enough equipment Friday night to be able to talk to Dan in my living room because this whole area back here was still a wreck.
But y'all,
it was only about,
new carpet.
an hour or 2 before we started recording.
Yeah.
That I finally got everything set up the way I needed it just to do this show tonight.
But y'all, I love my new carpet. It's soft. It's gray. I love it. You've seen it. I had white olefin Berber, which is harsh, and every piece of dirt sits right on top of it.
Not only that, but if you even
it.
spill water, which we have 3 kids under, like 5 and under, it happens a lot. Even with
a spot.
Supposed spill-proof cups.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a blemish.
Or husbands who spill coffee on it.
Happened a few times.
A few times. You hear how he says a few times. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining us for another beautiful study with me.
We're going to try to have her on once a month, by the way.
Well, God,
God
gives me things.
If God wills, we'll have Likened Unto Moses podcast once a month. We'll have maybe one of our guests on once a month, whether it be Dan, David, whoever's available. If they're willing, they'll come on once a month. We'll have her on once a month, and then we'll just have, a listener's choice if you guys want. If you guys have issues that you think you'd like to hear us talk about, you can email me, coursecorrectionradioth.com, or you can leave them in the comments of the video. Hey, really like you to cover this topic. We'll do our best. Understand we're not experts by any means, but we will do our very best to try to answer topics that are on your mind. So with that, I'm going to roll this intro music unless you have something else you need to say.
As of this week, guys, just go about ripping off your vanity veils and tell us about it.
Yeah.
And have a beautiful week.
Yep. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye. There it goes.
Had to get the screen switched over.
Am I off?
Not yet. But I can do this. Whoops. I'm in the wrong place. There you go. Now it's just a palm tree with your name on it.